I'm always weary of a Donovan Mitchell-led team. That his teams that's led by him never go to a conference finals.
They've won only 4 of 11 playoff series he's played in. So that's the situation right now for a guy that's been named an all-star for his 6 consecutive seasons.
Get in the gym, weight room, nutrition, whatever the hell it is, and get back at it, because y'all gonna write us the fuck off, man. But we'll be back.
The discourse surrounding Donovan Mitchell over the years has been very draining and oftentimes extremely disingenuous. People oftentimes misrepresent Donovan Mitchell, the person, his camp, and the type of player that he is, oftentimes creating false narratives about Donovan both on and off the court, specifically when it comes to his playoff shortcomings. But if you ask me, Donovan Mitchell is not only a top 10 player in this game, he has proven time and time again with a very long track record that he is a historically great postseason performer. People do not look at its context in its full situation, but I'm going to be the one today to defend Donovan Mitchell and talk about why he is the most underrated superstar in the game of basketball. Now, taking it back to the 2017 season, before Donovan Mitchell got drafted by the Utah Jazz, in the pre-draft process, this is a man who was labeled and compared to Norman Powell coming out of the University of Louisville. Donovan Mitchell was an explosive two-way wing who had a solid three-point shot, but was never supposed to be anything special. Utah had worked him out privately, and they had kept it a secret that this was the man that they were going to trade up for and that he was going to be a star in this league. And he burst onto the scene, averaging over 20 points a game in his rookie season, a season in which he was robbed of the Rookie of the Year award and in which he lost to a guy who was the Sophomore of the Year. But I digress. And Donovan Mitchell showed to the NBA world and to fans across the globe that he was ready to take on the challenge as the bona fide #1 option in Utah, led the Jazz to the postseason and beat future Hall of Famers in Paul George, Russell Westbrook, and Carmelo Anthony in that first round series, as he was the biggest reason and the biggest catalyst for the success of that Utah Jazz team in the 2017-18 season. Obviously, guys like Ricky Rubio, Joe Ingles, Rudy Gobert, all of those guys played an integral role in piece, but it was Donovan Mitchell as a rookie who eliminated Russell Westbrook and Paul George in the midst of their prime. Just want to take a moment to say, if you are appreciating this type of work and coverage from me, the best and easiest way to support me is by liking, commenting, and subscribing down below. It's free and it helps me and the channel out tremendously. My goal is to get this channel up to 10,000 subscribers by the end of the calendar year, and if you guys want more exclusive content from me outside of just here on YouTube, you guys can go ahead and follow me on my socials. The links to all of them will be in the description down below. But thank you guys again, and let's go ahead and get back to today's video. Now, before I go ahead and I start talking about some of Donovan Mitchell's postseason shortcomings and really defending him and also putting everything into its proper context, let's just go ahead and just lay the very simple groundwork. Let's talk about Donovan Mitchell and some of his accolades. Donovan Mitchell is a 6-time All-Star, 2-time All-NBA, has led 2 separate franchises in 2 separate seasons to a #1 record in the NBA. He has scored 2 50-point playoff games in the exact same series when he did it in the bubble against the Nuggets, joining only Michael Jordan and Allen Iverson as the only players in playoff history to have ever accomplished that feat. He recorded 71 points in a game against the Chicago Bulls, which tied him for 9th all-time in terms of individual single-game scoring. He currently ranks 7th all-time in playoff points per game leaders. He has 31 playoff games with 30-plus points. And let's just be honest, Donovan Mitchell's a winner on and off the court. On the court, he produces, and off the court, he just locked up Coco Jones. So that's a big win in my eyes. Now, I want this portion to be the main portion of the video where I talk about Donovan Mitchell and his playoff shortcomings, because we all know superstars are judged based off what you do in the postseason, and Donovan Mitchell, as dominant as he has been since being in the league, both in the regular and postseason, has never reached the conference finals. And NBA fans can sit here and make jokes all they want about Donovan's never been to the conference finals or Joel Embiid's never been to the conference finals. That's a topic for another day. Look at its context in its full context, and then we can actually have a discussion if you would like to. So let's actually go down the board. We're going to go from his first postseason in 2018 and work our way down to the present day. Donovan Mitchell in his first postseason against the OKC Thunder eliminated Oklahoma City in 6 games. I briefly mentioned it earlier, knocking out guys like Carmelo Anthony, Russell Westbrook, and Paul George. And Donovan Mitchell was the absolute biggest reason for why Utah was able to advance in that first round series. They eventually got knocked off by a team in the Houston Rockets in the conference semifinals in 5 games, where the Houston Rockets ended up going to the conference finals. No shame in losing there. Fast forward to the 2019 playoffs, and the Jazz are eliminated in the first round in 5 games by the Houston Rockets in a series where Donovan Mitchell averaged 21.4 points, and I would say that this was probably his worst postseason to date. He did have a bad one in 2023, something we'll get to later, but think about that. If a guy's worst postseason, he averaged 21.4 points, I think you're having a pretty damn good playoff career if you ask me. Now you move into the 3rd season for Donovan Mitchell, and this is where you get into the 2020 bubble. We all know that this may have an asterisk for some fans. I don't personally put a huge asterisk on it, but I do understand that there are different dimensions and different aspects to the bubble that made it more challenging and also made it a little bit easier for NBA players, coaching staffs, athletic trainers, you name it. In the 2020 playoffs, Donovan Mitchell was historically great. Not just great for the NBA that year, I'm talking all-time record-wise. Donovan Mitchell was phenomenal. I mentioned it earlier. He recorded 2 performances in that 7-game series where Donovan Mitchell scored 50-plus points, becoming the only player alongside Allen Iverson and Michael Jordan to have accomplished that feat. And although the Jazz did lose to the Nuggets in that 7-game series, Jamal Murray and Donovan Mitchell gave us a historic playoff battle that will never be forgotten, especially in my generation. And when you take a look at what Donovan Mitchell did, he was absolutely nothing short of sensational, averaging 36, 5, and 5 on 53, 51, 95 splits. Let me say that again. Donovan Mitchell in a playoff series averaged 36, 5, and 5 on 53, 51, 95 splits. And for those that don't remember, Bojan Bogdanovic, who was one of Utah's best offensive weapons, did not play in that series due to injury, which was a huge, detriment to the ultimate shortcomings of that Utah team in the bubble. And Mike Conley was a 3-point shot away in the final seconds on a buzzer beater attempt from Utah advancing in that series and going to the conference semifinals. They were that close, but the Jazz were ultimately bounced out in the first round. No Bogdanovic, and Mike Conley barely missed a 3-point shot. And to be fair, because I can already hear the comments, yes, Donovan Mitchell turned the ball over on that final possession. Before the Nuggets missed a fast break layup, Rudy Gobert got the ball, and Mike Conley missed a 3. I hear you, but let's not act like Donovan Mitchell was not historically great in that series. Now moving forward to the 2021 season, Donovan Mitchell helped lead this Jazz team to a #1 seed in the Western Conference. They ended up beating the Memphis Grizzlies in 5 games in that first round series. In the only game they lost, which was game 1 at home, Donovan Mitchell did not play in that game. He returned for the final 4 games of that series, and the Jazz gentlemen swept the Memphis Grizzlies. In the following series against the Los Angeles Clippers in the conference semifinals, the Jazz lost in 6 in that series. But let's not forget that Mike Conley sustained a hamstring injury in Game 5 in that first round series against the Memphis Grizzlies. Mike Conley missed the first 5 games of that Clippers series, and Mike Conley only played 11 hobbled minutes in that Game 6 when they got eliminated by the Clippers. In those 10 games in that 2021 postseason, Donovan Mitchell averaged 32, 4, and 5 on 45, 43, 83 splits. Donovan Mitchell was nothing short of sensational. Now, a lot of the unfair and negative criticism started to be aimed towards Donovan Mitchell in this series by the media, not just the national, but sometimes even in the local media. But more importantly, people labeled Rudy Gobert as the scapegoat because Terrence Mann had a wonderful Game 6 performance that eliminated the Utah Jazz, and people said Rudy Gobert's the problem. Rudy Gobert's the reason you're never going to be able to win a championship because he can't switch on the perimeter, which is a false narrative, discussion for another day, but Rudy Gobert was labeled to be the scapegoat. Donovan Mitchell played well, Bojan played well, all of the guys played well. But you know what the problem was in that series? It was Quinn Snyder's inability to adapt and change, but also the Jazz did not have enough perimeter defenders, which made Rudy Gobert susceptible to having to come out and switch because nobody on the perimeter could guard. topic for another day. Mike Conley, the Jazz's main point guard, a guy who was an all-star that season, got his only all-star nod, and was the catalyst for the Jazz's offense in setting everybody up, missed the first 5 games of that series and was clearly hobbled in that Game 6 elimination game. That is the biggest reason why Utah got eliminated in those conference semifinals. Coulda, shoulda, woulda. I'm playing semantics, but let's just call a spade a spade. Mike Conley was one of their most important players, and he missed the first 5 games of that series due to injury. Now moving into Donovan Mitchell's last postseason in Utah, the Jazz lost to the Dallas Mavericks in 6 games in the 2022 postseason. This is where Jalen Brunson, in a contract year, absolutely played his ass off before getting that contract with the New York Knicks, and he honestly gave it to Donovan Mitchell and this Utah team in that series. Jalen Brunson was absolutely head and shoulders one of the biggest, if not the biggest reasons why the Dallas Mavericks had won that series. And although when you look at this context and its full situation, Donovan Mitchell did play well in that series. The Dallas Mavericks, obviously collectively as a team, played better. Quinn Snyder needed to do a better job in terms of his inability to adapt and change. Bojan Bogdanovic was a 3-point shot away from forcing a Game 7, and although this is a ton of hypotheticals and semantics you're playing here, no significant injuries to report in this series. The Dallas Mavericks fair and square won that first round series against the Jazz, but Donovan Mitchell still performed. Now moving into the 2023 season, where Donovan Mitchell is now a member of the Cleveland Cavaliers. Donovan Mitchell, you could very well make the case that was his worst postseason performance after those 5 games that they lost to the New York Knicks. In those 5 games, Donovan Mitchell had averaged 23, 5, and 7 on 43, 29, 72 splits. I remember watching that series very closely and very vividly, remembering how Cleveland just got out-physicaled on the boards and just night in and night out. Julius Randle, Jalen Brunson, and a Tom Thibodeau-led team were significantly more physical than that Cleveland team, and they got their asses handed to them. So, to be fair, Donovan Mitchell absolutely had his worst postseason to date and underwhelmed and did not meet expectations in his first go-around in Cleveland in that first season. I will absolutely share some blame on him. Now into the 2024 postseason, the Cavs beat the Magic in 7 games, a series in which I had the privilege of covering Donovan Mitchell, the Cavs, and the Magic in that series. And they ended up losing to the Boston Celtics in 5 in the conference semifinals. And let's just talk about that Magic and Cavs series really quickly, because not only did it go 7 games, a series in which Paolo Banchero absolutely burst out onto the scene and proved to everybody at 21 years of age that he's a bona fide superstar in this game, but Donovan Mitchell and this team absolutely looked like they were going to be well on their way to a Eastern Conference Finals, potentially if guys didn't get hurt, which leads me into that point that they were injury derailed in those conference semifinals against the Celtics. Now, don't get me wrong, the Celtics were a historically great team. They deserved to win the championship that year. Who knows if Cleveland would have beat them? But having said that, Cleveland absolutely sustained a litany of injuries. The Cavaliers suffered injuries to guys like Dean Wade and Evan Mobley, even though those guys played. Karis LeVert and Jarrett Allen all sustained injuries, and Donovan Mitchell, who sustained that left calf strain in Game 3 of the conference semifinals, did not play in Game 4 or Game 5, if I'm not mistaken. But in those 3 games against the Boston Celtics, Donovan Mitchell averaged 31, 6, and 5 on 53, 51, 78 splits. He was absolutely historically great. And now finally, in the 2025 playoffs, after the Cleveland Cavaliers were the #1 seed in the NBA, they ultimately had shortcomings in the postseason as they beat the Heat in 4 games in the first round and lost to the Indiana Pacers, who eventually won the Eastern Conference, and they lost to the Pacers in 5 games in the conference semifinals. Once again, injuries are the story here. Evan Mobley missed games 1 and 2 in the conference semifinals. Darius Garland, I do not believe, even played in that conference semifinals, if memory serves me correctly. And DeAndre Hunter suffered a thumb injury in which he missed in Game 2. And this is not to completely excuse Donovan Mitchell, but it's also to point out once again that injuries piled up on Cleveland at the wrong time. Injuries, injuries, injuries. And even if you want to say that if Cleveland was healthy, this Indiana Pacers team was destined to make the NBA Finals, that's a very fair case. It's a compelling argument. Nobody knows, because we all know that Cleveland was decimated with injuries, and Indiana ended up getting the best out of them, and Indiana absolutely deserved to get to this year's finals. I don't take anything away from them. But I think it's also fair to point out that when you have sustained multiple injuries to a handful of guys, especially your top contributors, it's hard to fully look at the situation in its full context and not play semantics, not play hypothetical and say, hey, look, if this Cleveland team was healthy, which displayed time and time again throughout the regular season that they were dominant, who knows how that series would have gone, especially after what had transpired in Game 1 with Tyrese Halliburton hitting that incredible game winner. The real point I'm trying to drive home with all of this is when you go through the postseason and you really look at its situation in its full context, people just say simply, oh, well, Donovan Mitchell's a great player. Donovan Mitchell's a top 10 to 15 player, but he's never made the conference finals. So, yeah, obviously I'm going to question Donovan Mitchell. I'm trying to put it out there in its full context. Has Donovan Mitchell not demonstrated time and time again that he's a bona fide superstar? Has he not demonstrated that he is a historically great playoff and postseason performer? Yes, he has. Donovan Mitchell has been in an unfortunate situation where he has had very good teams around him, but he has sustained injuries in the postseason, or other players and top contributors around him have sustained postseason injuries, or he's on the brink of advancing in the postseason if it weren't for a missed 3 in the final seconds. All of this stuff is hypothetical. All of this is semantics. I'm not here dismissive of it. But the criticism that Donovan Mitchell gets, especially that he's not a great locker room guy, that he's not the guy that you want leading your team, is absolutely false narratives. People love to go out there and just make false accusations about tons of NBA players, and I think it's completely unfair. I hope that I've demonstrated the context in its full situation, and I can show and I can prove that Donovan Mitchell is absolutely a top 10 player in this game, and to me, he's the most underrated superstar in this game. Thank you all so much for watching. I appreciate your guys' continuous support. It doesn't go unnoticed. If you guys want more exclusive content from me outside of just here on YouTube, you guys can go ahead and follow me on my socials. The links to all of them will be in the description down below. And I want to hear your guys' thoughts in the comments down below about what you made of not only this video, but really what are your overall thoughts on Donovan Mitchell, both in the regular season and the postseason. Hopefully I could have convinced you enough and shown in its proper context why I believe he's so underrated. But having said that, I want to hear your thoughts in the comments down below. But thank you guys again for watching today's video, and as always, I'll catch y'all on the next one.